This barbecue story has been brought to you by my patrons, who smashed my I'll make an incredibly in-depth barbecue recipe video Patreon goal out of orbit and voted for today's dish, Turkish coffee-infused pork ribs. Barbecue is something I like a lot. I've been doing it off my little balcony for a few years now, but I always feel guilty watching recipe videos online for inspiration, knowing for sure what kind of folks these guys are when the embers cool down. It's also why I think there's a lack of creativity in barbecue. A conservative mind is a closed one too when it comes to foreign techniques, ingredients, and flavors. That's why I like to do stuff that I know no one has ever done before. For context, this is my third attempt at this concept, and by far the best. There's one tiny little thing I would have changed in retrospect, and I'll call it out when we get there, but for now, let's dive right into it. Feel free to follow along at home if you want, or sit back, relax, and let yourself take inspiration from this for some other food project. Now, I'm sure you're wondering what the fuck Turkish coffee even is. Calm your tits, we'll get there. For now though, I'm starting off with these two beautiful racks of pork ribs from the grocery store. Ribs are a pretty standard cut, so most grocery stores will have them in stock, but there's always a quality risk when you're not sourcing them from a specialist. This week though, the cut was great. Perfect for what I've got planned. If you're serious about this though, always go to a butcher. Now, the first thing I'm doing is tearing away what's called the silver skin from the back of these ribs. This membrane helped hold muscles together back when this meat was inside a living pig. Now, this thin layer of skin would only block seasoning and smoke from penetrating the meat behind it. If you've ever been eating ribs and you tore off a dry, thin, papery sheet of meat from the back of the bone, that means the ribs weren't prepared right. Now, in this first rack I was having a rough time because the knife I was using fucking sucked, so I'll show you a much better technique on the second rack after finding a sharper knife. The best way to do this is to get it all in one pull. So, with your knife, make a slice down the length of one of the bones, and then make an incision big enough to fit your finger into. Once you're in, wiggle around until you make a pocket of air. If you've ever spread butter in between the skin and meat of a chicken breast, it kind of feels like that. Finally, when you've got enough to grab, pull it up and away to cleanly peel it off. If you're lucky, this takes 2 seconds. If you're an idiot like me, it takes a while longer. Another thing to remember is that cooking should be fun, and you shouldn't come into it pissed. I had already made that mistake. A few days after buying these ribs, I got sick with a crazy fever. First time I'd vomited since college, probably, which was an interesting feeling to remember. I had no appetite or energy for days, and was really worried I wasn't going to feel up to the ribs by Saturday. Luckily, I felt a lot better that morning, but in retrospect, I was pushing myself a bit too hard and probably should have waited a few more days. Anyways, after peeling away the skin and exposing the meat beneath, I've got one more trimming pass. It's important to trim away anything that either looks weird or like it won't cook well. This is going to be cooking for a while, so it'd be a shame for anything to not turn out great. With a clean pair of racks and a fresh pair of gloves, it's time to season. So, first off, if you thought I was going to give you measurements, I feel sorry for you. Barbecue isn't a science, but it also isn't purely an art. It's somewhere in between, what you might call a craft, a creative application of skills and techniques. So I'll tell you what's in my rub, but I won't tell you how much, because I don't even know how much. Even if I did, giving you measurements is useless. As always, spice to your own tastes. Good luck. So, I said earlier I made one small mistake. Well, here it is. See all this salt? That's too much salt. I can't tell you how much salt it is, or how much too much salt it is, but I can tell you that it is too much salt, and why it is too much salt. So, most barbecue rubs you'll encounter are made of salt, sugar, pepper, paprika. That's it. In this case, I knew I was going to use very little sugar, because, spoiler alert, I'll be making a syrup to glaze. Because of that, I thought the rub needed a filler, and I figured I could just put extra salt to achieve that. I will also say I did taste it, and it tasted fine, but the finished product was just a little too salty. So, if you're following along at home, either don't, or use kosher salt instead of sea salt like me. I think that would be a fine amount in kosher, just because the chunks are larger. Try it and let me know. So, I'm putting sea salt. What else? Pepper. Let's go. A little bit of brown sugar to taste, like I said. Just a little bit, like I said, because the glaze is going to be what really makes this sweet. Onion powder, of course. Garlic powder, yes. By the way, sorry for not realizing I should have been pouring from the other side so the camera could see. Use your imagination if you have one. Next, a little bit of thyme. That's always great with pork, and you're going to see me get playful in a minute with thyme, so keep this in mind. Thyme is sort of a central ingredient that's going to marry a couple of flavors together here, so pay attention. Next, it's cinnamon and oregano. In case you couldn't tell, we're going for a Mediterranean herbal, salty, bitter, and soon sticky vibe. And last but not least, the Turkish coffee. So finally, what is this? Well, Turkish coffee is a specially ground Arabica powder. And when I say specially ground, I mean this stuff is so fine if I blew it onto a ghost you wouldn't even know it was there. What also makes it special is the brewing method, which we'll get into in a minute, but its fineness and rich flavor is what inspired me to use it in barbecue. Now, unlike the rest of the rub's constituents, coffee grounds, no matter how fine, will not dissolve into the meat or binding agent I'm about to add. And in the smoker, they'll burn while releasing their flavor. So the amount here might matter a lot if you don't want a finished product caked in coffee grounds. But also don't worry too much, because once the ribs are cooked, you can just rub off any excess burnt grounds. If you want to have something pretty to look at, though, be careful here. Once everything's together, we've got to mix up that rub and give it a taste test. Again, I didn't notice the saltiness here, but I knew the flavor I was looking for was there. It tasted like a bitter, sweet herbal spice. This was gonna go great, I could tell. Time to give these ribs a rub. Fitting into the Mediterranean theme, I'm going for olive oil as a binder. Now, in case you're out of the loop, basically what I'm saying is this choice is brave as fuck. Olive oil has a relatively low smoke point when compared to other oils, which means it begins to burn and smoke at a lower temperature, ruining whatever it's on. This pick is ballsy, it's confident, it says, hey, I know this oil is risky, but I want its flavor and I know my fire handling capabilities are good enough to keep the heat right where I want it, high enough to barbecue the ribs and low enough not to burn the oil. What I'm saying is it's a real punk move for me to go with olive oil. It's like squares play it safe with vegetable oil or fucking mustard, whatever. I'm out here like the coolest son of a bitch. Anyways, I'm rubbing this meat, right? So point here is to spread seasoning on both sides. Rub it in gently, making sure to cover the whole surface area in the rub. And finally, once rubbed, wrap it up and put it in the fridge until it's time to smoke. Whew, I'm feeling thirsty. How about some cough, eh? First, goes without saying, wash, dry, and disinfect your surfaces. So, what's this special brewing style, eh? Well, like I said, Turkish coffee is exceptionally fine, right? So fine that you can actually drink it with the grounds still in it. To prep, you need a special copper pot called a BBQ, or at least that's what it's called in Greek. I don't know what it is in Turkish. Copper is nice because it heats up and cools down very quickly. You drink it sort of like espresso out of a tiny little cup. The brew is so strong that you don't need much to get going, so you can use the cup to measure. Here I'm making a few extras because, did you really think I was just going to catalog my coffee tutorial? No, believe it or not, this is going to make it into the ribs. Just wait. Now, at this point I'm dropping the facade that I'm making Turkish coffee because I noticed I had some Greek coffee left. What's the difference between Turkish and Greek coffee? Well, same as between Turkish and Greek people. If you figure it out, let us know. And now that I'm committing, I kind of like this idea. A light, dry, salty Turkish coffee rub meeting with what will soon be a thick, sticky, sweet Greek coffee glaze inside a Texas-style kettle smoker of all things. 2 heaping spoonfuls of coffee and 1 of sugar go in, mix with cold water until it looks evenly distributed, and onto medium heat. If I were a little more Turkish, I might instead be warming it up more quickly in a vat of heated sand. After about 10 minutes, a thick layer of foam appears at the top, and finally boiling bubbles break through. You've got to lift it until the boiling stops, then put it back on just for a second until it boils up again, and there you have it. Sweet, hot, foamy, Greek and or Turkish coffee. Either way, made with beans that probably came from Ethiopia. The fuck I'm gonna do with this extra? You want it? Nah, I didn't think so. So what I'm gonna do is pour it into a small shallow pan and mix it with sugar? No. Honey? No. Cretan honey. The hell is Cretan honey? Well, it's honey from Crete. What makes it special though? Well, the bees who worked on it almost exclusively pollinate local thyme plants growing in the mountains, so without actually being infused with it by humans, the honey naturally tastes of thyme. Remember I said thyme mattered a lot here? Well, here's the flavor path I'm trying to bridge here. I'm trying to basically season this pork with 2 things, thyme and coffee. Seasonings that don't necessarily play well together. But you know what does great with coffee? Honey. In fact, many Mediterranean cultures use it to sweeten coffee over sugar. And you know what goes great with honey? Thyme. And so while thyme and coffee mixed together might taste like 2 different ingredients standing against opposite walls at a party, the honey and the syrup it'll shortly become is the common friend that closes the circle, forces them to talk, and makes them realize they have a lot in common. So, a honey syrup's pretty simple. 1 part honey for 1 part water, or coffee in my case, warmed up at a low heat. I put a little bit too much honey, so I had to put a little bit more water for it to dissolve. As it heats up, it's important to stir the ever-living fuck out of it at the beginning so that the honey mixes well and doesn't burn at the bottom. I didn't film this whole thing with the syrup because I didn't want to get sugar steam all over my camera, but it took about an hour for the liquids to reduce and then about another 30 minutes to cool down and thicken. You'll see the finished product later. No complaints here, so if you want to follow this exact formula, be my guest. Now, it's fire time. Welcome to the back balcony. Here's what I'm working with. I've got myself a Weber Master Touch kettle, and I've taken out the top grill to give myself more space. Now, for the ribs, since the meat is too thin to poke with a thermometer and get an accurate read, you've got to follow the cheat sheet. Ribs take a total of 5 hours at the barbecue temp to finish. 3 open and smoked, 2 wrapped in foil to finish. What's barbecue temp? Great question. See, the same cut of meat will come out differently depending on the heat and for what amount of time you cook it. There's differing opinions on this, but in my book, 200 to 300 Fahrenheit is barbecuing. Anything below is smoking, and anything above is grilling. So, to build a fire that's going to provide a steady heat around 250 for 5 hours, I'm using what's called the snake method. The idea is to curl a stack of about 2 to 3 coals high in a path around your grill. Here I'm using a steel cone to help sandwich them in, but you can use any big piece of heat-resistant metal or even a ball of aluminum foil if you need. Then, after I eventually light one side, the fire will slowly snake its way around. I've done this a few times and in a few different seasons, and I know my grill circumference takes coal about 10 to 12 hours to burn through in the winter, so I'm filling it about halfway for these ribs. For extra flavor and to help the fire spread, I'm sprinkling in some leftover maple wood, because I'm thinking that'll lend itself well to the coffee flavor, and also some whiskey barrel wood, because I think that'll play nice with the honey. It's always best to overlight when you're starting the fire from one side, so I'm using a shit ton of these nice, soft beeswax fire starters. It's also important to let the fire go for a while before placing the meat, just to make sure that you've accurately set it and it will spread. So I'm going to take this opportunity to put back on the top grill, let it heat up, and give it a little scrape and a cleaning. I remember feeling a little dizzy during this bit. First indication I wasn't completely back from being sick. It also was really tough because, so my neighbors upstairs were evicted a few months ago, and not that I miss them. As some of you guys know, they were a major pain. Were super inconsiderate folks who caused all sorts of water damage and made so much noise fighting with each other. I had to postpone a couple of things and then honestly was scared a couple of times. But something went wrong with the people who were supposed to move in, so while they wait, it's been turned into an Airbnb. And it's nice because most of the time it's empty, but this week, the week I was making the ribs, a group of 6 American girls was staying upstairs. And everyone knows there's this whole drinking tourism here, right? Drinking age here is 18, so Americans cross the border just to drink early and go clubbing and shit, because it gives them a couple of years head start. And holy fuck, were these girls pre-drinking every night. I was popping Tylenols like candy, just trying to get some sleep. I could barely catch a blink of the stomping and the screaming. It was fucking bananas. So then the day before the ribs came, and I'm taking my my 10th soft yellow bile-filled diarrhea spritz of the day. I come out and my ceiling is leaking. I put a bucket to catch it, but this nasty grayish brown water was dripping from the ceiling. Fucking had to go up there first time ever and tell them, hey, everything okay? I'm the guy downstairs and our ceiling is leaking. They open up and they're freaking out and ask me for help. I'm like, the fuck? First time I'm in the upstairs unit, there's so many fucking empty cans of beer littered everywhere, and the toilet's filled to the brim, nasty shit water pouring all over the floor, fucking straight out of a horror movie. So I walk into their bathroom and I just close the valve to their toilet. And they're like, we told the landlord already, the toilet's clogged. And I'm just like, that's cool. If you can't manage it with a plunger, you guys are going to need to get a bowl or something and start scooping. And then I left. And it's like, they were so plastered, they just couldn't be fucking bothered. They're literally pissing and shitting on me, and they couldn't be fucking bothered to just get their hands dirty and solve the problem themselves. If you know you're coming to this country with silly intentions and to do something irresponsible, don't, for the love of God, book an Airbnb and stay where people actually live. Go to a hotel. Go somewhere where it's their job to clean up after you, where you're only with other visitors. Anyways, this thing here is the rib rack. I'm going to use it to hold the ribs. Ribs take a lot of surface area, and since they need to be constantly placed at the opposite end of where the fire is, it lets me hold them vertically, and as you'll see in a sec, also move them around more easily. And this is the thermometer. Most grills come with a thermometer, but I'm specifically interested in the temperature near the opposite end of the grill where the ribs are going to be, so I'm using this probe. It plugs into a transmitter I've got dangling below the grill, which feeds this nice wireless receiver, so once the ribs are on, I can monitor them from inside. Good on a cold day like today. It's been about 20 minutes, the fire started to die down, but we've got some nice embering going on, and I feel confident that the fire will spread. We're also going to be switching to the action cam, because it can get a little bit closer to the heat without melting. As you can see, fire's quieted, embers are going. This is perfect. This is exactly what you want. The grill is ready for the meat. So, after fumbling around with the selfie stick a little bit, unwrap the ribs and get them onto the rack, standing vertically, like I said, as far away from the fire as possible. I had to reposition the probe to get a reading closer to them, but things are looking good, and the grill's about ready to close. So my goal is to direct smoke to the ribs without them needing to be right over the coals and fucking burning, but I also want to direct embers down the path of the coal snake, so I'm closing the vents positioned 5 o'clock from the coals. That way the smoke will move towards the ribs, right where I want it, and hopefully the airflow will direct the embers to spread in that direction. And judging from the smoke column already forming, I think things are looking good. So now it's a matter of waiting. The first hour is always the riskiest. It's when you'll find out if your meat's drying out too fast, if your fire's spreading too fast, if anything's going wrong basically. Now, normally as a rule of thumb, the more times you peek, the worse your cook's gonna go, but I still recommend that 1 hour check-in, even if it's just to jostle the coals around. So, I'm setting up a quick timer, and it's back inside. From here, I can see that the temperature is slowly climbing back into that 200-degree barbecue range, so looks like I set myself a good coal snake. Fast forward, it's been an hour, and I'm ready to check up on them. Also, I look fucking pissed, eh? Man, I really wasn't feeling so good that day. It's silly, but like, I have this really dumb Marc Chagall print, some of you might have seen in the background of the Hades video. The reason I kept it is really stupid, and even as a tangent, it may be better for another time, but even at face value, technically, like, I got this from my grandmother's pre-estate sale, and the water that was leaking from the ceiling yesterday was like half a meter away from where it hangs. My bucket kept catching those girls' shit water for a while until the landlord came up and helped, but I kept thinking, like, what if they had soiled the painting? Would I even care? Without getting into it, I don't care much for this painting. I don't even think it's very good. I mostly kept it as a reminder of something really fucked up that happened near it when I was a kid, sort of thing that like burns an image into your memory, for me, of this dumb fucking chicken. But on top of being sick and sleep deprived, now I really wasn't feeling the ribs today. I was a little cranky the morning of the cook, and yeah, I did them anyways, and yeah, as you can see at the hour mark, they're turning out great. Got a nice bark developing, but I wonder if I wouldn't have fucked up on the salt had I been in a better mood, had I actually woke up wanting to cook today. If I hadn't had to contemplate yesterday whether or not I actually cared about something that I decided to keep for some very stupid, silly reason. Anyways, trying to look on the bright side. Some people have to pay to be pissed on like I was. Here I am complaining. Anyways, ribs are looking great, and as you can see, the fire is spread. So, to keep them from burning, I've got to rotate the grill's surface. At the rate of the burn, I figure that'll hold them for the next 2 hours they stay exposed. So, close up, reposition the vent over the ribs again, and off to wait another 2 hours. Now at some point during those 2 hours, the heat rose a little over 300, which had me worried, so I went out to adjust the vents. I closed both the bottom and the top vents halfway. What's tricky is when you close the vents, you actually temporarily get the opposite effect you intended. Closing the vents to choke the flame sharply raises the temperature momentarily as less heat can escape. But as the fire comes to terms with its new airflow, the heat slowly drops to below where it originally started. Fast forward again, and the 3 hours of barbecuing open are done. Oof, big smoke. But fuck, are the ribs looking nice. The bark is developing really well. Good shit. For those of you who don't know, basically what happens when you cook for this long and at this low of a temp is that moistures within the meat start to evaporate, fat starts to render, and collagen, the connective tissue holding meat together, breaks down and absorbs some of the liquids. That's what will eventually make these ribs pull apart. But what happens on the surface is that those liquefied fats that escape brown as they cool and merge with, first, the seasonings, and second, the smoke itself. Meanwhile, the salt slowly penetrates through the rendered fats into the meat, carrying smoke with it and creating that distinct red smoke ring. That's what I love about barbecue. There's this intricate chemical dance happening where smoke particles, seasoning, salt, and oils are all moving in and out of the meat, carrying their unique signatures with them. But the dance is so fucking delicate and can only happen within this small temperature range. At any lower temp, the dance wouldn't be fast enough, and at any higher temp, it'd go too fast for them all to exchange pleasantries. Anyways, here comes that fucking glaze, boy! I hope you can see how viscous it is. This syrup was so aromatic, it smelled lovely. You can really tell that it wasn't just regular coffee and regular honey. There was a distinct richness to each of its components that made it stand out. After a quick glaze on each side, I'm wrapping them up with a few small pieces of butter, hopefully enough to carry them over the last 2 hours without drying out. And wrapped in foil, it's back on the grill for them to finish up. Where the first 3 hours were all about letting them smoke and building up that bark, the last 2 are about rendering the rest of the collagen and making sure these things pull apart. At this point, I'm cleaning up too, because there's not much left I'll need. This is the home stretch. As long as the heat is maintained, then in 2 hours they're done. Gotta trust the process. Inside, my girlfriend started some Mediterranean-style potatoes that are going to roast in a bath with olive oil, garlic, and lemon while the ribs finish. Something light, because honestly at this point I wasn't even sure if I'd have appetite to eat the ribs I'd been working on all day. I'll say though, the acidity was really nice, so it was a good pairing. If you have the stomach for much more, I'd say another compliment would either be a light cucumber/tomato salad with dill, something super fresh to counter the heavy barbecue flavors, or even, honestly, some roasted asparagus. The bitterness would play well with the coffee. Basically what I'm saying is if you can, it'd be good not to just have meat and carbs. Finally, after some surprisingly consistent heat all the way to the finish, the ribs are ready to take off. I know it's hard to see, but I promise that's what's happening here. Hey listen, barbecue's an all-day process. You gotta deal with the fact that you're probably gonna be taking this shit off at night. Let me tell you, I know my expression doesn't sell it, but the smell alone as I took them off the grill was taking me to a place. Like, not only did it smell great, but the fact that I knew nobody's probably ever smelled something like this before. Fucking barbecue pork ribs slow cooked for 5 hours over maple and whiskey, rubbed in herbs, and Turkish coffee glazed in a honey and Greek coffee. I tell you, nothing's better than executing well on a concept nobody's ever done before. Not just like, meh, but coming up with an idea and finally getting your first hint of its flavor and realizing, holy shit, yeah, this works. I was really happy with myself. Moment of truth. The camera doesn't catch it well, but it's really easy to rub the excess coffee from the bark. Those 2 hours covered did their job though, just trying to pick this thing up and a bone fell right off. In case you didn't know, that's an incredibly good sign. I'm going with the knife, not because I need to, but because I'm afraid I'll just pluck out another bone if I don't. I really want to take a peek at that smoke ring. It's honestly a bit hard to see because the rib meat is so thin, but fuck me if the smoke ring is even a ring. The whole thing is red. I think I smoked literally the entire rib. That's a first for me. And holy fuck, the meat just pulls apart, zero resistance. This isn't even filmable. This is basically like fucking pulled pork. Oh, I tried my best to plate it, but it doesn't do justice just how tender these things are. Overall, yeah, a little too salty, but proven. These are some good ribs. This is a good concept. It fucking works. Probably not beginner level if I'm being honest, just because there's a lot of risk burning some of its seasonings if you don't have a good fire control, but fuck if it's not worth learning barbecue just to get to make this, just to be competent enough to make these. These ribs are great, and I'm really proud of myself. Say, this is a 9 out of 10 from me. If this recipe's inspired you in any way, I'd love to see what you make with it. Thank you so much for watching, and again, to my patrons, so much for your support. I wish I could pull off one of these ribs for you to try. Thank you all so much, and take it easy.